Hi everyone. So today we are going to be making Father's Day gifts since next week is Father's Day, and we're going to be making frames, and we're going to take a picture that we like of our fathers or our father figures in our lives, and we're going to be putting them into the frames. So first you can just take some type of thick paper or thick poster board or cardboard and get it ready. And you're going to first make some measurements. So if you need help making the measurements, please have someone older than you, an adult or a sibling or a cousin or somebody help you take the measurements. So the first thing we're going to want to do with our paper is make the outside of the frame. And the outside of the frame should be 8 inches by 9.5 inches. So we're going to take a ruler, and we'll start from the edge just to make sure we have some nice straight corners on the outside here. And we're going to measure 9.5 inches across. And so my little ruler here only goes to 7, so I just make a little line here. And I go down here and I go 2.5 more inches to get to 9.5 here. So when you get to 9.5, go ahead and make a little mark on your paper, and that'll be where you stop your border here. So your frame will go from here to about here when you do your measurements. And then once you make your little line here, then you're going to go 8 inches up from there. So, or in this case, 8 inches down. So from here, you're going to go all the way down, and mine again only goes to 7. So I make a mark there, and then I just continue all the way down and do another inch to get to 8 inches. So your frame will be 9 inches by 9.5 inches, 9.5 inches by 8 inches. And then you'll come back here to cut the full frame out. So let's do that part first. Make the outside of the frame, which is going to be 9.5 by 8 inches. So I already made my little cuts and my little lines. So now I made my little dots. So now I'm just going to connect my dots so that I have lines to cut on. So you can go ahead and do the same while I'm doing that. Just draw a straight line up. Yeah, and while I'm drawing my lines, just want to wish you all the best. I hope you're all doing well. We're about to go into summer here. I'm sure that's really exciting for a lot of you. I'm hoping that after all the changes with school and everything, that you have a little bit of a break ahead of you so that you can relax a little bit and have some downtime. I know that, my husband is a teacher, so, his last week of school was last week, and he has a little bit of work to do around reports and stuff, and then he'll be relaxing too, and we'll be having some downtime together as a family. So I hope that is happening for each of you as well. And now I'm going to make my line all the way across here to make my frame. Okay, so as you can see, I made lines to make the outside of my frame. So now I'm going to cut those lines. So next week on Sunday is not only Father's Day, it is also summer solstice. So in addition to celebrating the fathers that we have in our lives, or father figures that we have in our lives, we can also celebrate what's called summer solstice next week as well, if you feel called to do so. So for summer solstice, this is the marker for when the days go from getting lighter and lighter and longer to darker and shorter. So after summer solstice, you'll start to notice that the days are going to get shorter, and it's going to get darker earlier, and it's just going to keep getting darker earlier and earlier until we get to winter solstice in December. So as we move into this time of change where the light is getting to its absolute longest period and then shifting into its shortest period, a lot of times we like to look at it as going from a lot of light into going into a time of quiet, a time of reflection, and a time to look at what's going on around us. So as we're transitioning into that, it's a really good time for us to take a look at what's going on around us and take a look at what's going on in our lives and just see what we're happy with, maybe see what we want to change. And as we're taking a look at those things, we can use some of the practices we've learned in the past to kind of call in what we want more of and what we want to change, and to just kind of anchor in what we want to stay the same and what we want to know is true about us. So that's a great thing to do as we come into the solstice. And next week on Father's Day, on Sunday, I'll talk about summer solstice a little bit more, but I just wanted to give you a little preview as I was cutting out the outside of my frame. So here's the outside. Now we're going to need to take measurements again. So take your handy ruler, and we want the inside of the frame to be 2 inches from the outside all around. So you'll measure 2 inches from the top to kind of tell where your next line is going to go. You can see this is about 2 inches from the top, and then you'll measure 2 inches in to see, here's 2 inches here, to kind of see where your inside line is going to go. So on the inside, we want it to be 3.5 by 5.5 inches. So once we measure 2 inches up, so I have 2 inches here, and I make a little mark, just a little 2-inch mark. Then from there, where the 2-inch mark is, I have one right here. We want to take 2 inches here, and we want to make sure we're 2 inches up from the top and 2 inches out from the side, and then just kind of make a little mark where that is. And just, if your mark was a little bit over here from before, just scoot it over to where that exact 2-inch mark is. And so you want to have it be 2 inches from the top and 2 inches from the side. And then once you have that nice point, that's going to be your starting point to go 5.5 inches to make your next line. So from there, you're going to measure 5.5 inches and make a little dot, which I've done right here. And then from there, to go up, you want to go 3.5 inches. So you're going to go up to 3.5 inches, which I've done here. You can just kind of see 3.5 inches. And then when you make that little dot there, you're going to want to go another 5.5 inches across and make a dot here. And then from that dot, you want to just double check and make sure that it's 3.5 inches apart. So I'll explain this a little bit better. I'm going to show you for a second here. So you can see that my 2 tiny little dots, you see that tiny little dot up there? Right there, and then if you go all the way down, you see a tiny little dot right at the 3.5 inch mark. Okay, and so I made all those all around. So from on your inside frame, the part that you're going to cut out and glue your picture in, that is going to be 3.5 inches this way and 3.5 inches here, and then it's going to be 5.5 inches this way and 5.5 inches here. And just remember, to start that, you really want to start it by measuring 2 inches up from the top and 2 inches from the side, and that'll get you your nice starting point there. And again, you may need help from an adult, so please ask if you need help. So now I'm going to trace the inside but not cut it yet. So I'm going to make dots to trace the inside so that I have an idea of what my frame size is going to be. And don't worry about, as you're tracing the lines, don't worry about being too exact. If it's a little bit crooked or a little bit off, it's okay. It will still come out really great. All right, so now we have our inside of our frame right there. So that is where we're going to glue our picture. And we're going to actually cut it out so that the picture goes behind it and glues to the inside. But first, we're going to decorate our frame. So in order to decorate our frame, I have a bunch of paint and colors here. So I'm going to work to paint and color the whole outside. And once I paint and color this whole outside part, then I'm going to cut this inside part out. Okay, so you can see I finished painting, and this is kind of what it looks like. And I just wrote up at the top, "We love Daddy." You can write whatever you want for your father or the father figure in your life. And if you look really closely, you can still see the line that I made, the lines I made for the inside of the frame that we want to cut out. So we're going to start doing that now. We'll start by just making a small little incision in the center so that we can cut along the lines on the inside. So for those of you who have a helper who's older than you, you might want to have them do this part. For those of you who don't have a helper, usually what you do is you just make a fold on the line. I'm going to do that right now. Make a fold on the line. And then you just want to make a little cut right on the line. It's a tiny little cut. See if I can fold it a little better. There we go. There, just a little cut there. And then once you have that cut, you're going to make a little tiny, just tiny cut on the fold right on the line. And then you want to sneak your scissors in there and you want to cut on the line. And again, if you have an older helper with you, have them do that part. It's kind of tricky to do, but you just want to fold it once your paint is a little bit drier. You want to fold right on that line, and you just want to make a tiny little cut and then sneak your scissors in there and cut along the line. Okay? And I'm going to work my way around and cut on the line here. My paint is still just a little bit wet. I recommend that you let it dry a little more. I used acrylic paints, which actually tend to dry really fast. So if you have acrylic paints, I recommend using acrylic paints because they dry a lot faster than other types of paints. And I kind of added a lot of water to my paints to make them spread a little bit more and give the effect of watercolors. And I'm just cutting right along my lines that I made earlier when I did my measurements. So I'm gonna grab a tissue here and wipe my paint off my hands so I don't get paint everywhere. So then you can see I cut out that center part. You see that? So now I'm going to take our photo that we chose, which is this photo right here, and we're going to glue it right in there. And I left a border around it. Do you see that border? I recommend you do the same thing. You leave a border around it, and then you can glue the border to the back and have the photos shine right through. You see how that's going to look? So I'll send a finished example in the email that I send to your parents if you want to see it, but that's a really cool way to make a really neat frame for your father or your father figure and then give it to that person on Father's Day. I decorated it this way with paint and purples and greens and white and some other colors, and I put "We Love Daddy" at the top. You can decorate it however you'd like. You can use markers. I just think paint is kind of nice. It shows a little bit more effort and makes it pop a little bit more. So you choose whatever you want for your project. And I just want to thank you so much for taking time to do this project with me, and I just wish you all the best in your upcoming summer and with your fathers and or fathers figures on Father's Day. And we'll talk a little bit more about Father's Day and summer solstice again next week. So please join me next week for some more ideas on crafts and those two celebrations. So as always, we'll just end our time in prayer, and I just know that the love and light that is all things, the source, spirit of all that is in my heart and is in your hearts and your lives too, shining in all that you do. And so I know that we are all blessed. I know that your families are blessed. I know that everything that you do is guided by spirit, love, and light. And so I let it go in gratitude and in blessings, and so it is.